think we haven't.
I can't hear what you're saying, but if you want my opinion on the game.
Yes, I'm back now, I think.
We're back now. Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, where do you start with that? 4-3. Look, that's what every fan wants to see, entertaining football like that. It was an entertaining game. If I'm being hypercritical about it, it's that when Newcastle went 1-0 up, and certainly when they went 3-2 up, they just weren't able to keep the nerve. And realistically, if you're going to get points off the top teams, that's exactly what you have to do. And sadly, they just weren't able to sort of compose themselves. And it's been a problem in other games as well. But look, it's against Man City. They're one of the very, very best. And, Newcastle are safe now. So ultimately, I suppose it doesn't matter as much as it did a few weeks ago. But it would have been nice to get a point tonight. And tomorrow, if Newcastle watch on and Brighton win, then they'll be back down to fourth bottom. So there lies the overall problem this season.
Well, the game itself, as we've mentioned, City totally dominated. Newcastle had 18% possession in the whole game. Still managed to score 3 goals. And despite those stats, Lee, and we saw how well City passed it around, Newcastle, aside from the goals they scored, did look a bit threatening. Joe Linton had an effort blocked, and he probably should have done a bit better in the first half. And there were bits and bobs where Newcastle did actually threaten to maybe go out and get all 3 points.
Yeah, I mean, at 3-2 up, there was a long way to go. But at 1-0 up, when Shelvey hits the woodwork with a free kick, then that becomes a different game entirely. A 2-0 lead, completely different, really. And it might just been a bit of a push for City, but I don't know. There was a period during the second half when Newcastle just couldn't get the ball, and Man City were just absolutely dominating, like Barcelona used to under Guardiola. And it was difficult to watch. But sometimes you just got to almost sit back and admire when you're playing against the top managers and the top teams in the world. So. It's hard to get too down about it because it was a decent game. I think if the fans had been in tonight, I think they would have applauded Newcastle off, despite losing the game. And if they'd played with that style all season, then I don't think they'd be where they are, and I don't think there'd be half as many complaints. But I suppose you have to have all your top players fit to do that. I mean, only 18% possession, as you say, but very exciting on the counter. The likes of Almiron going forward, St. Maximin, and Joe Linton having another good game tonight. There was a lot of positives despite conceding 4 goals.
And some of the players you mentioned there give Nathan Ake a really tough time. And considering how much he cost from Bournemouth last summer, we had Willock, we had Joe Linton give him a really tough game. And it was nice to see from a Newcastle point of view, the big expensive players like him getting bullied on the ball and having a poor game, and Newcastle's players actually not being afraid of these big stars with big transfer fees.
Yeah, I mean, look, we know that wasn't Man City at the very best, and there was a few changes, and they did give away a chance by putting the backup goalkeeper in goal as well. So we can't get too carried away with it, but ultimately, if Newcastle, this is the thing, they've got St. Maximin, they've got Almiron, we're getting more from Joe Linton. Callum Wilson will be fit next season, and there's a few other options in and around the squad, but they probably need 3 or 4 quality additions this summer. Now, this is where the big question mark lies, because Mike Ashley feels like he has a deal on the table and wants to sell. Okay, that's great now, but if that doesn't go through, then they're going to have to address it. And I just wonder if they're going to get caught in the middle somewhere where the takeover situation is delayed. I mean, no problems if the takeover goes through, because they're then on a different level altogether. It's fantasy football all of a sudden. But if it doesn't go through, this team needs to build again in the summer, and I don't think the resource will be put forward for them to do that, because they're already talking openly about Bosmans and loan deals for next season. So it's a tricky one, and it's a shame because, as I say, they have got a decent 11, and they need to build on that.
Well, that's it, isn't it? I tweeted at the end of the game, there's a platform there to build on, and there's not really any excuse. But obviously, one man who's key to that is Joe Willock, and it's one of those signings where you really like to see it get done or get an answer, at least yes or no, right early on in the window, so then Newcastle can look at other targets, because he's proved again tonight how key he is to a good counter-attacking Newcastle United side.
Yeah, and as I say, it was good to watch. I mean, Almiron and St. Maximin, sometimes the final pass just wasn't there, but overall, the fans won't complain about that, because if the team has a style about them on the break, that's very exciting. And against other teams, that'll be fine. If they'd done that against Sheffield United away and Brentford in the cup, then I'm pretty sure there'd be a different result. Honestly, am. And they did have players available to do that. I mean, St. Maximin was injured. We know about that. He had the COVID problem, but there was still others that they could have put together a side like that. When Fraser was fit, things like that. But they just opted to go for a defensive sort of strategy. But yeah, it's kind of behind one now. But we'll just have to see what they can get out these last two games, and they are two very presentable opportunities to pick up 6 points.
Definitely, Sheffield United rather on Wednesday in front of 10,000 fans will be great to see. You mentioned it, Lee, kind of referenced it twice here already in this show, and obviously in your match report, about there'd be no complaints from fans if Steve Bruce had set up the way he did tonight in many other games. I think Bobby here makes a great point. He says, "Well done, Newcastle. Well played. All Newcastle fans want to see a bit of fight in the team and a club who produce a good game of football," and that's kind of what they did tonight. As long as they're in a game and they don't sit back and fear teams, and yes, we saw that passage of play where City had like 4 minutes worth of possession, but Newcastle was still in it and they gave a good show of themselves, and that's all Newcastle United fans want to see: the club being within a shout of a game and getting a result.
Yeah, and I mean, with 20 minutes left, anything could have happened in that game. There was 7 goals had been scored, and both teams were still, trying to get something out of it. It was just unfortunate. I think really Newcastle the last sort of 7 days, they've won 4-2 and they've lost 4-3. Fans would be pretty happy with that. I mean, I've never been one of these ones who say I would rather lose a game 4-3 than win 1-0. No, I want to see Newcastle United win every time. I know that's not possible, but if the effort's there and the purpose is there, then you can't complain with the way they went about the business. That's all people want to see, as you say, effort and a team that tries, and they certainly tried tonight. And as I say, if there'd been fans in there tonight, they'd have been applauded off. There's no doubt about it. Even though they conceded 4 goals, they'd have been applauded off. And yeah, I mean, it's but then the whole sort of what's been running in the background between Steve Bruce's popularity, the supporters not taking to him, pundits coming out and defending him, even before the game today, Jermaine Jenas talking about trophies being plonked on tables and restaurants and all this nonsense, and there just seems to be still tension in the background, and that's something that may be there all the way through Steve Bruce's reign.
I want to ask you about that Manager of the Month award in just a moment. Just a quick chat about some of the goal scorers today. We've mentioned Joe Linton, brilliant penalty. He won the penalty as well. But we had Kraft getting a header, which was brilliant to see because he's had a tough time as well. And he's been playing in this role, which isn't really his natural role. But he's come in. He's not one to shy away, and to see him get a goal and put in a decent performance, in the face of what has been a tough year for him, it's a positive, definitely.
Yeah, and credit to him for stepping up and taking the penalty, because that, when there's a VAR delay and all the criticism that he's had, he also missed the penalty against Newport in the Cup. So for him to have the confidence and show the desire to do it, I thought that was first class. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure exactly why he didn't take the second penalty. There was a long discussion between him and Willock about it, and Willock obviously fancied it, and yeah, fair enough. He got there in the end with it, but yeah, it was good to see, and hopefully, you know, his third season can be his strongest. But he's still got a couple of games left to add to his tally. He's on 6 in all competitions now. If he can get anywhere near double figures, then you know, he's salvaged something from a season, you know, that looked pretty desperate at one stage. And yeah, I mean, I personally think he's a great sort of athlete. I think he's a very strong player. That's why he's in the team. He wins so many headers. My only criticism on him has been the desire to score. When he comes off the pitch, sometimes he doesn't look like he's worried that he hasn't scored. And the great number 9s at Newcastle, you know, they've got a face like thunder when they're coming off the pitch and they haven't, you know, got on the score sheet. But, you know, maybe I'm being a bit old-fashioned there and expecting too much. But, you know, I think he's certainly shown the character to want to succeed at Newcastle United, and fair play to him for that.
I think Steve Bruce said he wanted to see Joelinton take that penalty, or at least argue that he should be taking the second penalty. I mean, just a word on Kraft as well, because he's had a tough time, but he scored the header from the corner. Good to see him, you know, getting some plaudits because he had a decent performance tonight against what was a tough side.
Yeah, it was brilliant to see him score, but not only that, his defensive contributions in the first half. I think he put in 5 pretty much immaculate tackles, and you know, he's playing in that sort of more central position in the back 5, and you know, he's another one he's had criticism, but he's bounced back and showed that he's a decent squad member. So you know, that was a good spot from the scout that signed him.
And just finally, before I let you go, Steve Bruce, manager of the month for April. I mean, the results, 11 points out of 14. So it was the turnaround Newcastle needed to achieve safety. Fully deserved, do you think, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, there was stiff competition for April, so you know, he's got it. You know, it was a vote as well, so obviously got a lot of people voted. I think personally, Steve Bruce at Newcastle, when he's got the results and done well, I think he has had the praise. I don't think it's as one-sided as people make out. You know, yeah, he's had some heavy criticism, but no heavier than other managers have had down the years. You know, after disastrous results. And for me, the Brentford game, that was a disastrous result, because that's an opportunity to get through to a semi-final, and you are going to upset the Tyneside public by not at least putting an effort in. It wasn't just the fact they got beat that night. It was the way they went out the cup. Sheffield United away was also very similar. A narrow 1-0 defeat at Bramall Lane, but you know, against a team who were rock bottom. And if they played like they had with the same style tonight, then that wouldn't have happened. So you get criticism as Newcastle manager. It's a very high profile job, but I think I personally think that the balance has been there by the majority of journalists. So I'm 100% sitting here thinking I'm not convinced that he's been hammered all the way through by everybody, because that's just not true.
No, I think we've got the balance right. Yeah, and like you mentioned, Jermaine Genius' comments before about humble pie were quite interesting. But I'll let you get away, Lee. Thanks for joining us on the Everything is Black and White podcast. You can head over to chroniclelive.co.uk to see Lee's match report, his player ratings. We've got 5 things up there from Kieran Kelly as well, and plenty of that content from tonight's game. And yeah, thank you very much for tuning in.